So let's get into our topic here today. And what we're talking about here is practice and real estate disclosures. Now, this is a pretty big part of your final real estate exam, right? This is actually 25%. You're going to get 37 to 38 questions of the content that we discuss here today. This here is going to be 37, 38 questions of your final real estate exam. So it's a lot of content. Be sure to review it and reach out if you have any questions. But we're going to discuss the licensing and continuing education. We're going to talk about real estate practices. We're going to talk about the brokerage itself, what actually happens after you pass your exam and joining a brokerage. We're going to talk about property management. We're going to talk about specialty areas, and then we're going to finish up on the disclosures. So let's start off with licensing and let's start off first with licensing and continuing education. Now, real estate salesperson's license, let's be real, this is why all of you guys are here. And a lot of you guys got in for different reasons. Maybe some of you guys are getting your license for property management. Some of you guys are getting into this is to sell properties on the side or maybe buy for yourself. Some of you guys just want to get your license just so that you can buy and sell property. When it comes to your real estate salesperson's license, what you'll need to know is this. A license is required of anyone actively involved in a real estate transaction at the service of another in expectation of receiving a commission. The part about expectation of receiving a commission is where your license is needed. If you are expecting to help someone and receive a fee, receive a commission, you will need a license for that. Which brings me to individuals that are just getting their real estate license because they want to negotiate deals, find deals for themselves. You don't need a license for that. You can do all that all by yourself. But if you're expecting part of the commission, part of the compensation, then yes, you are going to need a license. If you think about like a for sale by owner, an individual who owns a property and does not want to hire a real estate agent, they can do that. They're not getting any compensation. They are representing themselves. You only need a license if you are representing someone else and you want a fee. Now, if you do violate this, that you are breaking real estate law, there are fees, penalties that you could incur, but if someone is representing someone else, expecting a commission, you're going to need a license. Now, our real estate licenses are good for 4 years, just like your driver's license. They're good for 4 years, and anybody can actually get this. You just have to meet the few requirements: 18 years of age, pass a background check. You also need to complete a college-level real estate principles, real estate practice, and one approved college-level salesperson course. Now, when we talk about NRE schools and our curriculum here, when you pass an open book exam, you have then completed principles. Once you complete your second open book exam, you will then complete practice, and then the third approved college level course is our finance book. So once you complete all 3 of those open book exams, you have then completed the prerequisite, which is your college level principles, practice, and approved course, which is the finance. That's why I'm a big one on your open book exams. If you're not taking them, take them. If you don't pass them, you can take them again. It gives you a good gauge of how you're absorbing the content and where you're at in the process. But you're not moving forward if you don't complete your open book exam, so I need you to take your open book exams ASAP. And then in order to get your 4-year salesperson's license, you do have to pass the DRE salesperson exam. And that exam is administered by the state. The closest testing facility here in Orange County is off Valley View and La Palma. Valley View and Orangethorpe in the city of La Palma. And this one here is a 3-hour, they give you 3 hours and 15 minutes. It's 150 questions. You have to get 70% or more in order to pass this, and it costs $60 to apply for this exam. Now, this is why you guys are here. This is what you're working towards. You're attending these live courses, watching this video because you're learning the content to take this exam. This is the big one. This is the important one. And this is where we can help you prepare to get ready for that final real estate exam. Now, when we're talking about your real estate salesperson's license, you have to know it's good for 4 years, and you will have to renew every 4 years. And when you do renew, you are going to have some continuing education. You are going to have to complete a certain amount of hours. You're not going to have to do this course all over again, but you are going to have to complete a certain amount of hours in order to renew your license. And this is what you're going to need to know. You're going to need 5 separate 3-hour courses. 5 separate 3-hour courses on these subjects: the agency, fair housing, trust funds, ethics, and risk management. In addition to that, you are also going to need a minimum of 18 hours of consumer protection courses. Total, you need 45 hours. So you can do this first half, which is 15 hours. You can do this minimum 18 hours, which is 15, and that's 33 hours. We need another 12 hours to complete the 45-hour requirement. And to do your 45 hours total, you can do consumer service or consumer protection courses. It doesn't really matter. You can do any of them. What you need to know, 18 hours of consumer protection courses is what you're going to need in order to renew your salesperson license, in addition to the 5 separate 3-hour courses. So you're going to need to do some courses, and you'll do that every 4 years. As laws and things change in our industry, in order to renew, you'll have to do this. Now, you could be late. And if you are late renewing your license, it's not the end of the world. You're not going to have to do all this all over again. You'll actually have 2 years. After your license expires, you've got 2 years to renew, or it's basically null and void and you're starting all over again. So don't be late. But your late renewal does come with a cost. So if you do not renew on time, it is an extra $122. In addition to all the prerequisites that you're going to need, you'll also have to pay an extra $122. So don't be late. And you have up to 2 years after expiration. So let's continue on licensing and continuing education. When we talk about your salesperson's license, you have to know that when it comes to child support, the child support and the Department of Real Estate, they don't get along. Child support needs to be current. It needs to be handled. So if you have any child support obligations or child support in arrears or any issues dealing with child support, I highly recommend that you connect with the Department of Real Estate and ask them specifically like what needs to be done in order to get your license. The last thing I want you to do is go through a course, pass the final real estate exam, and then have your license held up for months because the DRE and child support are kind of to get clarification. So it's very, very important. Any child support issues, make sure you contact the DRE. Now, the DRE may issue you a 150-day temporary license, but again, that's temporary, and you want to get any child support issues resolved, especially when trying to get your real estate license. Now, let's talk about non-working status. So when you pass your final real estate exam, you can't just go to work right away and start soliciting. You are going to have to join a broker, but there are a ton of real estate agents out there, real estate salespeople who are not actively in the business. These are people who just have their license and they're not actively working, and these are what we call non-working status. My cousin is one. My cousin works for a commercial property management company. He has his real estate salesperson's license, but he doesn't practice. He's never done a transaction. He just has his license because he wants to have his license in case he ever needs to, he says. He cannot actually conduct a residential real estate transaction. He has to join a brokerage because he is no brokerage, no employer. He is known as no broker affiliation. Non-working status is a salesperson who is licensed but not practicing. The third type of license, the third thing to know when we talk about licenses is that there are things called restricted licenses. Now, these is a blemish. If you go to dre.ca.gov, look at my license, you will not find that I am a restricted license or I don't have any, I've not been reprimanded for anything. I haven't entered a lawsuit and there's nothing against my license. But some individuals will, whether it's a crime, whether they were sued, it may show up on their license where the public can see it. And they may have what we call a restricted license. Now, this one here, you're basically on watch from the Department of Real Estate, and the broker employing that agent will also have some certain requirements to do as well, but having a restricted real estate license is not a good thing. It's not a good thing. The public can see it. The consumers can see it. It is a blemish. It's a mark on your real estate license. The DRE watches you a little bit more closely because if more things happen, well, they might suspend or revoke your license. Now let's talk about the relationship between the broker and the agent. Let's talk about how what happens after you pass your real estate exam, but you have to know all salespeople actively engaged in professional real estate must be employed by a licensed real estate broker. Now, in the eyes of the IRS, when the Internal Revenue Service looks at real estate salespeople, they view them as independent contractors. We, real estate salespeople, aren't receiving W-2s. We're not receiving a salaried income. We get paid on the sales that we make through a 1099. So that's why the IRS views us as independent contractors, where in the eyes of the Department of Real Estate, salespeople are employees of the broker. And this is kind of where it confuses everybody, because you think W-2, you think salary, you think employee, you think your employer can tell you the employee to do stuff, come in certain hours. That's not really the case with the real estate brokerage. With the real estate brokerage, the broker is responsible for all the agents, and that's why an agent has to have the supervision of a broker. But the Department of Real Estate views us salespeople as employees of the broker, but in the eyes of the IRS, we are independent contractors. Now, after you pass your final real estate exam, let's talk about what happens next. The first thing you need to do is interview with Nationwide Real Estate executives to see if we're a good fit to be your brokerage. I'm just kidding. Let's do a 15-second commercial. I am a product of this school. I went through a real estate school. I joined the brokerage that taught this school. They taught me the systems, the steps, how to build my real estate business. And that's how we have built over the last 12 years. 11 years. 11 years. We went from 4 agents, I was one of them, to building 5 offices, 7 different companies, over 500 agents. Throughout this school, we've turned a ton of agents into successful real estate agents and building teams and offices. Our systems, our tools have been built for individuals just like yourself. Well, so we wish we could hire all of you guys, but we don't have enough seats for everybody. So after you pass your test, let's see if it's a good partnership, see if it's a good fit. And if it is, great. If it's not, we wish you nothing but the best. But in order for you to conduct business after you pass your exam, you have to join a real estate brokerage. Simple as that. After you join the brokerage, you will need to join a local Realtor Association board. And the Realtor Association board, you can consider this is like your cost of doing business. These are your minimal fees. You are business owners. This isn't, everyone pays for everything for you. You are your own business. And this is the minimal cost of business for real estate for any of you guys. Part-time, full-time, there is no part-time, there is no full-time in real estate. You're either doing it or you're not. And in order to do it, you need the appropriate tools, and you can only get the appropriate tools from the Realtor Association Board. Now, there are a ton of Realtor Association boards all throughout Southern California. Our dues renew every January 1st. So if you pass your test in July and you sign up for the board, you'll have a prorated cost, but every January 1st, all the real estate agents that are actively selling and doing business will renew their board dues. Now, these board dues are going to cost you anywhere from about $1,300 to $1,400. Prepare that. Prepare that now. Start saving for it now if you don't have it. When you pass your exam and if you expect to do business, you need to join a board. You're going to get all your tools here. You are going to get MLS, zip forms, and all that stuff I'll discuss right now, but this is where you're going to get everything, and this is a cost that you need to know is you're going to have to pay it, so just be prepared for it. So what you'll get from your Realtor Association board is MLS, Supra, zip forms. That is, MLS is your inventory for homes. Supra is what you'll use to access homes, open combination locks, and get keys to show properties. Zip forms is our contracts library. Through your local realtor board, you'll also be able to get training, specialized training on technology, contracts, that type of stuff. So you can go to your board. Our brokerage offers a ton of that, but you can also get that from the board. You can get certifications from the realtor board. So maybe you do an 8-hour class on certified distressed property expert, or you want to become a probate expert, just do a class, pay a small fee, and then now you can use that in your marketing and say you are a probate expert, whatever. But you get that through the board. In addition to the board, this is where disputes would happen amongst agents. Now, when issues happen, issues arise between you and another agent, you're not going to the Department of Real Estate and saying, this agent did this, they're unethical, they're doing that. You actually don't go to the Department of Real Estate. You actually go to your local Realtor Association board. And that's what the board does. And that is all done on a local level. So you would do any agent disputes through them. Through your board is where you're also able to obtain realtor branding. Realtor, apologize. Realtor is the proper pronunciation. It is a registered trademark from the National Association of Realtors. If you are not a member of a board and you are calling yourself a realtor, you're technically in violation. But when you join the Realtor Board, you will become a member of CAR, which is California Association of Realtor. You will also join the National Association of Realtors. And lastly, you'll also get access to CAR's legal hotline. So if you ever have a legal issue, a part of your membership is contacting an attorney for advice. So you'll get that all through your Realtor Board. Now, let me just jump into those three main tools. The MLS is the tool that we use for inventory. We post homes for sale in the MLS. We know what homes are for sale through the MLS. We have showing instructions on how to show properties through the MLS. We can see our compensation through the MLS. When you are viewing properties on Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, Coldwell Banker site, Century 21 site, any website that you see online, all of those websites, all of that data is fed in there from a resource called the MLS, the Multiple Listing Service. So the multiple listing service is where all the inventory is, and it feeds all the internet websites. We also have Zip Forms. Zip Forms is a benefit through CAR, California Association of Realtors, and Zip Forms is where all our contracts are. Listing agreements, purchase agreements, addendums, like repair requests, like all the disclosures that you could possibly think of for a real estate transaction is all going to be in Zip Forms. And then the last main tool is what we call a Super E-Key. The Super E-Key, you'll see it's an app, is what it is. It's an app, costs you $15 a month. But 80% of homes that you're going to be showing are going to have this blue lockbox. This blue lockbox is owned by the listing agent. That blue lockbox contains the key. It is an electronic lockbox, and it's pretty cool because it knows who opened a property, when they closed it. You have to have the app to open up that lockbox. It's really secure. You can only buy that through the Realtor Association board, and you have to be a licensed real estate agent to get that lockbox. So that is a tool, a benefit for sellers, and you'll need that to show properties. So let's jump into some questions and answers. Let's jump into a quick quiz here of the 45 hours continuing education. The licensee, you must complete what? 18 hours of real estate practice, 9 hours of consumer protection, 9 hours of real estate practice, or 18 hours of consumer protection. Now remember, this is the renewal. This is after your 4-year license. At that 4-year mark, you do have to do a few things. 18 hours of real estate practice. No, you actually only do that when you are getting your real estate license. Consumer protection, 9 hours, maybe. 9 hours of real estate practice. Nope, it's not that. It's either B or it's D. The answer is actually D. You need 18 hours of minimum of consumer protection. You need a total of 45 hours actually, and 18 of it needs to be consumer protection. When a real estate licensee fails to renew a license before it expires, the licensee is no longer eligible for a license. Not true. If you are late renewing your license, you can still get it. You have 2 years. Has 2 years from the expiration to renew by paying a late fee, $122, but will not be required to take the state exam again. Yeah, that's actually true. Will be required to pass a license exam again and pay? Nope. Can receive a restricted license? Nope. The answer is B. 2 years. You'll pay a late fee. You still have to do your 45 hours, 18 hours of it has to be continuing education. And if you guys remember, there was 5 other courses 3 hours each that you needed to do. So those are all part of the renewal process. Let's jump into real estate practice. Let's jump into trust accounts, fair housing, all that type of stuff. So let's talk about a trust account. Now, the broker itself has a trust account, but the trust account is an important reason for designating a trust fund depository as a trust account is the protection afforded principals, funds, and situations, yada, yada, yada. So when you hear trust accounts, I need you to think of your own personal bank account. Like, really, that's what I want you to think of. And what a trust account is for in the eyes of a broker is just keeping the money separate, my money versus your money. A broker accepting a money deposit and instructions is required to us, the broker, me, the broker, real estate broker Ben here. If I ever receive money from a client, I need to do one of three things. I need to, one, give it to the principal. So it's not my money. I need to give it to a principal, whoever it's for. Maybe it's I need to give it to the seller, whatever. I give it to the seller. It's a bad example. Or I place it in a trust account. Remember, the broker's trust account is basically an account designated for client funds only. We need to keep it separate from any other funds, commissions, expenses, rent, profits, salaries. The broker has to keep a separate account for client funds. And the last one is give it to the escrow company. If I ever receive funds on behalf of a client and it's instructed to go to escrow, I need to give it to escrow. A key word in real estate for the exam and learning is commingling. Commingling is not a word that I think we ever use too often in our everyday lives, but what commingling is, it is mixing the client funds with the broker's own funds. Keep in mind, a real estate broker has an account. They have a trust account, and they have these separate accounts for different things, paying the rent, paying salaries, receiving commissions. But any client funds need to go to a separate account. And when you mix more than 200 of the personal and company funds into one account, you are now commingling. For the broker's responsibility, they need to have their own account designated for client funds, and anything over $200 is known as commingling. Another term that we want to discuss is conversion. It's also called theft. Let's be real, this is theft. This is the unlawful misappropriation and use of a client's funds by a licensee. We had an issue way back, literally it's like 10 years ago, where we had a client give one of our agents a deposit check, actual personal check, but they didn't write in a name. They didn't write in escrow. They didn't write in escrow company. They didn't write in Nationwide Real Estate. They left it blank. For some odd reason, the agent put her name in there. She put her name, deposited the $2,000 check, and when confronted, I just had to use it. We didn't open escrow yet, but I was going to provide the funds, when we open escrow or give it back to the client. I have no clue what she was thinking and why anybody would think that was okay without permission or at all. It made no sense. But that is called conversion. It is the misappropriation, the misuse of a client's funds by a licensee. Let's go into record keeping. Now, I mentioned earlier trust accounts. Think of your own personal bank account. When we talk about record keeping, that is a responsibility of the broker. We do have to track where the funds are going. I always tell everybody, when you talk about record keeping, think of your checkbook and think of that little book where you write a check and then you write out what that check was for, and then you put a subtraction and then you do the math so you know how much is in your checking account. Like, just think of the old school way of writing checks. Record keeping, important. We have to keep a record keeping routine. That's what the broker has to do for the trust account. Trust account withdrawals. And now think about who can withdraw from your bank account. Typically it's you. If you have a spouse and they're on the account, typically they could withdraw from that account as well. But when it comes to trust account withdrawals from the broker, it's the same principle. Who can withdraw? The broker whose name the account is maintained. Duh. They can remove money from the account because of the broker on there. The designated broker officer if the account is in the name of the corporate broker. If the account is in the name of the corporate broker, the designated broker officer can withdraw. If specifically authorized in writing from the broker, a salesperson licensed to the broker. So if I wanted an agent who was employed with me to be able to withdraw, I would need to have specific writing provided to the bank to allow them to withdraw funds. In addition to this, a specifically authorized in writing broker who has a signatory of the trust account, an unlicensed employee of the broker, is covered by a fidelity bond. An example is a bonded executive assistant. So if you've got an assistant who is bonded and insured and in writing, you have given permission, that is acceptable as well too. But trust accounts, think of your bank account. When we talk about withdrawals, who can withdraw? It has to be in writing, or your name has to be on it. Now let's jump over to California State Fair housing laws. Super important, absolutely super important. I guarantee you're going to get a question regarding one of these fair housing laws. Let's talk about the Unruh Civil Rights Act, and this here is no discrimination allowed in businesses based upon sex, race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, age, disability, genetic information, marital status, sexual orientation, citizenship, primary language, immigration status, or medical condition in California. I really didn't have to read all of that out for you, but I just chose to do so. Don't be racist. Don't discriminate. You know this one. If it feels wrong, it's probably wrong. You can't discriminate for housing reasons. You absolutely cannot. That is called the Unruh Civil Rights Act. We also want to know the Rumford Act. We more commonly know this one as the Fair Employment and Housing Act. This one deals specifically with rentals and sales and financing provides, and this is basically the same as the Unruh Civil Rights Act. Like, you cannot discriminate. Absolutely cannot. I'll say it 15 times. Cannot discriminate. The other fair housing one that we want to know is the Holden Act. This is called the Housing Financial Discrimination Act, and this forbids mortgage lenders from what we call redlining. Redlining is denying loans or varying terms based upon the property's location. So maybe the bank gives a bit higher rate because the property is in this zip code. Or maybe because we're going to give this person different terms because of their skin color or their last name. It's when the mortgage lender denies loans or changes the terms based upon a location or also violates any discrimination. Housing, maybe the H gives you the determining factor. Holden, housing financial discrimination. Fair Employment Housing Act is the Rumford Act, and the Unruh Civil Rights Act. Got to know those, absolutely. Now, the federal laws, this is the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1968. Big year, 1968. Not that I was born, but you need to know, 1968, there was a U.S. Supreme Court, Jones versus Mayer, and that was the catalyst for all of this. Not the catalyst, but this here was the case that finalized and prohibited discrimination in sales of rental and financing dwellings and other housing-related transactions. Absolutely landmark court case for prohibited discrimination. Now, the Federal Civil Rights Act, any discrimination that the two acts, the Unruh and the Fair Employment Housing Act, did not prohibit, there are no exceptions to this. It made it completely illegal for licensees to engage in any discriminatory practices. A sad situation is if you ever YouTube like white flight. I went down the rabbit hole just kind of preparing and just learning about the white flight and how real estate agents would steer individuals based upon race and the marketing that they would use to move individuals out of an area because another race was moving. It's really sad. Google that later, look that up, but that's all plays into the Federal Civil Rights Act. It prohibits multiple listing service from discriminating or denying participation. This also requires fair housing posters to be posted in all real estate offices, and then gender was a protected class that was added in 1974. The fair housing posters must be present and available and viewable at all brokerage, subdivision, financial institutions, and mortgage lenders. Now we have the Fair Housing Employment. We have the Fair Housing Employment Act, the rights. The Department of Fair Employment Housing is the one that enforces them. So if a consumer has a complaint, they have issues, they feel that they've been discriminated upon, they have issues, they're going to take it up with the Department of Fair Employment and Housing. Now, still on the topic of marketing and fair housing, we're going to talk blockbusting. Blockbusting and panic peddling are pretty much the same thing. But blockbusting is blockbusting or racial steering is one of those things that you're probably going to get on your final real estate exam. You're going to get a question around it. Got to know it. Just know what this is. Blockbusting. Nope, not the movie rental place. This is blockbusting. This is the practice of illegally frightening homeowners by telling them people of a particular race, religion, or national origin is moving into the neighborhood. That's like knocking on someone's door as a real estate agent saying, hey, my name is Ben, Nationwide Real Estate. You have a set of blank people moving into the neighborhood, and when that happens, prices tend to go down. You really should sell. That is illegal. That's called panic peddling. That's called blockbusting. That is highly illegal, and don't do it. The other thing is racial steering. This refers to the practice in which real estate brokers guide prospective home buyers towards or away certain neighborhoods based upon their race. This is the act of saying, oh, you probably want to live in this neighborhood because your people live in that area. When you assume like that, you are setting yourself up for trouble. This is called racial steering, racial race. That should be your cue. But that is you judging someone based upon their looks, assuming or encouraging them to move in with their own people. Can't do it. It's illegal. Don't do it. Department of Real Estate. That's the governing board. All our laws are governed by the Department of Real Estate. The commissioner, as the chief officer of a department, is duty-bound and enforce the provisions of real estate law. The Department of Real Estate has the power to suspend, revoke your real estate license. Lots of definitions. Take the time, review, go through the handout, review the definitions, but these are all no-nos. These are things that you definitely do not want to do that could hinder your real estate license, and one of them is misrepresentation. And misrepresentation is a false statement, something that you say as a real estate agent that could affect the other party's decision in agreeing to a contract. You do not want to misrepresent, not tell the truth, say the wrong thing, because that could lead into suspension, revocation. This could result in an issue, a blemish on your real estate license, so we don't want that. You also don't want to make false promises. Kind of similar to misrepresentation, but it's not. This is a false promise, saying that you're going to do something. Yes, we're going to do that. We're going to do this. We're going to do that, but that you don't actually follow through with it and had no intention. That is a big no-no. It's a violation. You do not want to do that. Another issue is undisclosed dual agency. If you do not inform the parties that you are representing both buyer and seller because you don't think that they're going to want you to represent both, like that's a big no-no. Don't do it. You have to disclose to all principals, buyer and seller. If you are representing both sides, you do need to disclose that to both parties and make sure that they're okay with it. And then a definite termination date, having someone sign a listing agreement with you to sell their property, but have an infinite date, meaning you write up this agreement that says, if you seller ever sell your property, you have to hire me. Like, there has to be an ending date on all employment contracts. It has to be clear. It has to have an expiration. Another no-no, another violation is what we call misuse of trade name. And this one is violated all the time. If you are not a member of a realtor association board, you cannot have business cards. You cannot distribute business cards. You cannot have an email signature line calling yourself a realtor. So misuse of trade name, if you are not a realtor, you cannot use that trade name. Now, negligence and incompetence. Now, this was a kind of a hard one to determine. The negligence and incompetence can only go so far. You are a licensed professional. You have the same degree as a veteran of this industry of 20 plus years who's done 1,000 transactions as the person who just got the real estate license yesterday. Negligence and incompetence. You pass an exam. You have a level of degree. You do need to maintain professionalism and keep yourself educated. The broker is responsible for you, which is the lack of supervising associate license. The broker can get in trouble by just letting agents run amok and do whatever they want and not follow the rules, so the broker can get in trouble. But negligence and incompetence, you still have to have a level of expertise, education to conduct real estate business. Now, the intentional manipulation of opinion of value, and I've seen this several times. I was trying to find the court case that recently had this, but there was a local agent who had to deal with elder abuse too. Approached a elderly man, told them their home was worth X amount of dollars. The old man sold the property. The agent also failed to tell the seller that the investment group that bought the property, that the agent was actually part of that investment group too. So failed to disclose dual agency or have any interest in the property. Gave him the super low price, and the owner agreed to it. A couple months later, the elderly man's a family member, brought this to suit, and they did not tell the owner that their intention was to purchase the property at a low value, to resell it. They took advantage of the man, and if you are caught intentionally manipulating the value of a property without disclosing it to the person, that could be grounds for a blemish on your real estate license. Convictions. If you have a real estate license and you are convicted for criminal crime, anything else, federal misdemeanor, that could be deemed to suspend your real estate license as well too. Failure to disclose ownership. If you are part of an investment group, if you have any relation to it, you do need to disclose that you are part of that entity. If your family member is purchasing a property, you do need to disclose that as well too. And then, of course, obtaining license by fraud. Any fraudulent stuff is always going to be a big no-no. Now, when we talk about disclosure, I constantly have this conversation with a lot of my agents in regards to marketing and what key components do they need to have when they're doing disclosures or marketing of their real estate business. And I see this violated all the time. I'm sure if you jumped on Facebook right now and you have any real estate agent friends, just look at their post. And if their post signifies any part of soliciting and it does not have their license, does not have their brokerage, does not have their title, they are in violation. But you're not going to rat them out, are you? You're not going to do that. So anytime that a real estate licensee is distributing, publishing, circulating, they are advertising their services, they must contain their DRE license number. Required for all first contact solicitation materials. First contact solicitation. So maybe it's social media posts, it's business cards, stationery, TV ads, flyers, print ads, electronic media, brochures, mail, for sale signs, open house signs. All of this must contain your DRE, Department of Real Estate license number. One little addition to this, and you might see this violated a lot too, is that the font size of the license number must not be less than the smallest font. So if you look at someone's business card, right, and if the smallest font is the license number, technically that's in violation. If the license number and the phone number are the same font, they're both the smallest, but they're the same font, that is absolutely fine. The license number just can't be the smallest font on your marketing. Look at a flyer. Look at an open house sign. Look at a for sale sign. I want you to look at all of those marketing by other agents and ask yourself if that license number is the smallest, and if it is, it's violation. So let's go through some questions, right? Withdrawals from the real estate client's trust account can be made by the broker or by which of the following people? Only salespeople employed and authorized by the broker. Not true. Not true. And the part that makes this answer not correct is the only part. Because a unlicensed executive assistant who is bonded and insured can also, who's authorized, can withdraw. Any individual is authorized by the broker in writing. Any individual? But if they're not employed with you, they don't apply. Only corporate officers, the only is the one that kills it. Bonded, unlicensed employees, because they still work together, who are authorized by the broker. It's going to be D. When a broker deposits his own personal or business funds in a client trust fund account, that act is termed commingling. Conversion is theft. Padding is, adding to something. Adding extra. Violation of a trust fund security. Nope, it's commingling. It's when personal funds and client funds are mixed together. Oh, this is a long one. Bill offered to buy Sam's house. The same day, an offer came from Wendell. Sam consulted his agent about the offers, and while they were talking, the neighbor came over and weighed in on the conversation, informing Sam that he would rather not live to Bill because he is a minority. Well, that's rude. The agent told Sam that he should not deal with a minority buyer and should deal with Wendell because he is not a minority. Damn, okay. Sam thus accepted Wendell's offer, which is the not a minority, based upon the fact that he's not a minority. According to fair housing laws, which of the following parties is not guilty of discrimination? Which one of the following parties is not guilty of discrimination? All right, so let's go. The neighbor. While they're talking, the neighbor came over. Okay. Neighbor's racist. The agent. B, the agent. Well, the agent told Sam. Now, the agent's guilty too. Sam, that he should not deal. Sam is the seller. Sam, okay. So Sam is the seller. Sam thus accepted Wendell's offer based upon the fact, okay, Sam is just discriminating as well, and Wendell is the buyer because so Wendell's not a minority. Bill offered, came from Wendell. I'm consulted. It would be D. Wendell. Wendell is the buyer. Wendell didn't discriminate. Wendell didn't pop up and be like, "Hey, I'm not a minority. Accept my offer." No, everyone else discriminated upon. It is. If a person offered to buy the house and his offer was chosen based upon his race, the person making the offer was not discriminated against. Yeah, Wendell made the offer. Wendell did nothing wrong. It was the seller, the agent, and the neighbor being discriminating. Tammy was told she was not allowed to live in Deckerville because people of her ethnic background are not welcome there. Wow. Whom should she complain to? She needs to complain to the department, not the Federal Housing Administration. She needs to complain to the Department of Fair Employment and Housing. Yep, B, Department of Fair Employment and Housing. In which year of the following years did the U.S. Supreme Court prohibit all racial discrimination when real property is sold or rented? 1968 is what it is. Under California law, the real estate commissioner has the authority to do which of the following? All right. The real estate commissioner, the Department of Real Estate Commissioner, what do they have? They have the right to review an unrestricted license without an hearing. Okay. They have the right to promulgate, I don't even know what that word means, rules and regulations to enforce California real estate laws. If I knew what promulgate meant, I may be able to help. Impose fines, revoke license, and promulgate rules and regulations. Okay. Impose fines on any real estate licensee who is convicted of fraudulent activities. Man, I made the slides. I can't even remember which the answer is. So let's see. Revoke any unrestricted license without a hearing. I don't think it's A, because they would still have a hearing. If I knew what promulgate meant, I would feel a lot better. Rules and regulations of divorce. Impose fines. They do impose fines. Do they impose fines? I'm going to guess B, because I don't think the Department of Real Estate imposes fines. I think the local Realtor Association Board does that. I'm going to guess B. Let me see if I'm right. Oh, I'm wrong. Let's see. Impose fines, revoke license, is the head of the Department of Real Estate, promulgates and regulations. The commissioners suspend, revoke. Not even the courts have this power. Revoke licensees. Yeah, it is C. Impose fines on any real estate licensee who's convicted. No, they do have the. I guess they do have the right to impose fines, revoke licenses, and I got to learn what promulgate means. Blockbusting is described as an attempt to panic a neighborhood in thinking property values will decline due to unwanted persons moving in, form a guerrilla band to use violent action, nope. By insurance companies, nope. By banks, nope. It is A. Panic a neighborhood thinking the values will decline if a particular race moves in. Redlining. Redlining, remember everybody, redlining has to deal with loans. So let's see. Redlining refers to a now illegal practice by D, lending institutions. Awesome. Let's jump into brokerage. Brokerage and the new salesperson. So what's the purpose of a brokerage? Purpose of brokerage. Secure listings. Build up that inventory. Prospect for new buyers through various forms of advertising. Negotiate. That is the whole goal of a real estate brokerage, is to facilitate transaction between buyers and sellers, to train agents, to house agents, to help them build their real estate businesses. And typically brokerage firms compete for listings, and they cooperate with other brokers to find buyers for homes. Now, NRE and this new salesperson, the brokerage and the new salesperson, we at the brokerage have a 90-day platform. If you join NRE and Nationwide Real Estate Executives is the fit for you. You're working with me over the next 90 days. I'm going to guide you, show you the steps, show you the fundamentals of what we need to do so that when you are writing offers, so that when we are in escrow, that you don't feel so lost. Majority of my day, Monday through Friday, is working with my agents, guiding them through transactions, discussing practices and techniques and strategies and scripts and objections, and just guiding them so that they can be self-sufficient down the line after they've done a few deals. We meet every day. We discuss different parts of the business, but that broker and real estate salesperson relationship is extremely important, especially at the beginning of your real estate career. And then we also have our jet training workshops, which is a full course to help you earn business faster and transact much faster. Let's shift gears. Let's go to unlicensed agents. And these are all things that you guys can do right now. And this plays a small portion into your final real estate exam. But you got to know what you can and can't do. As an unlicensed person doing real estate activities, there are a lot of things that you can and can't do. But the things that you can do is you can cold call. So if you said, Ben, I want to work with you as an unlicensed salesperson, and I want to cold call on your behalf, you guys are more than welcome to. If you guys have ever heard the term VA, which is virtual assistant, these are individuals that are making calls on behalf of real estate agents, companies, real estate agents, construction companies. You probably get these calls all day long. A lot of these calls come from India or the Philippines, and these people are making calls on behalf of agents like myself and brokers like myself and owners like construction owners, asking you if you have any interest in construction or real estate. And if you do, they'll set up appointments for whoever hired them. And this is something that you guys can do for me right now. So if you wanted to work with me, I can have you calling. I can give you a list, and you guys can start calling, and you can start booking appointments. You just can't negotiate. You can't spat out terms and techniques. You have to say, yes, I can set you up with our broker, Ben. He can meet with you at Friday at 10, tomorrow at 5. What time is better? Book the appointment, and that's it. So unlicensed individuals can cold call. Unlicensed individuals can also host open houses with me. If you wanted to host an open house with me, you are more than welcome to greet people at the door. You are more than welcome to hand them a flyer and say, thank you for stopping into the open house. That's Ben over there. If you have any questions, he's the broker. Take a look around, guys. If you have any questions, just let Ben know. You're more than welcome to greet people. Me host this for me at my open house. You can put out my signs if you'd like to. You can do all that. But you cannot show or exhibit the property. You can't walk around the house and say, this is the kitchen, the roof is 2 years old. You can't do that. You cannot discuss the conditions of the sale. You as an unlicensed person cannot discuss features of the property such as location, neighborhood, and schools. You cannot engage in any conduct that is designed or structured for solicitation purposes of the property. That is only for the licensed person. You can simply say hello, smile, give them a flyer, and move on. Access to property as an unlicensed person, you can have access to property. So if you need to meet the inspector there, you need to meet the client and the inspector to grant access, that is absolutely okay. You can't use my super lockbox key, but if you are going to be accessing a property or viewing a property without the licensed broker or agent, you do need permission, especially written permission, from the principal, also known as a seller, to do that. Preparation of documents, you guys are more than welcome to play around and push some paperwork for me. You don't need a license for that. An unlicensed person can very much prepare documents, disclosures. They could prepare these documents to be reviewed by the broker. You can very much put together a comparative market analysis. Any marketing, solicitation, or advertising, you more than welcome can put that together for me. Think of like a graphic designer developing this stuff. They can absolutely do that with the approval of the licensee, the broker, the agent. There is something called the Consumer Recovery Fund, and the Consumer Recovery Fund is right here. It's a fund. It's a last resort of a member of the public who has obtained a final civil judgment or criminal restitution against a real estate licensee. I always viewed it like this: like if you try to sue someone, an agent, let's say they disappear, whatever, and you, the client who was wronged, cannot recoup any of your funds, the Consumer Recovery Fund is maybe your last resort. You can receive up to $50,000 per transaction or $250 per licensee for multiple transactions. So if you were wronged by an agent and that agent disappeared, they left the country, the broker's gone too, and there's no one to be found, the Consumer Recovery Fund might be your last resort. Now, when it comes to agents, the Code of Ethics is the last resort. I'm sorry, I'm still thinking Consumer Recovery Fund. The Code of Ethics is what all real estate agents, realtors, swear upon by. We swear, when you guys pass your real estate exams, join the local realtor board, one of your requirements in order to move forward is that you're going to have to show up in person. You're going to have to raise your right hand and swear upon a code of ethics. You have to swear that you're going to be honest. You're going to have integrity, fairness, and moral conduct in business relations as a real estate agent. This code is what we all adhere by. So, handled mainly by realtors associations, that is the Code of Ethics. Let's jump into some questions, some quizzes. Larry, an unlicensed employee of the real estate broker, hands out door hanger flyers and makes telephone solicitations seeking buyers and sellers under real estate law. His activities: unlawful for the broker, commonly accepted behavior, unlawful for both Larry and the employing broker, unethical for Larry. It's going to be C. It is C because it's not unlawful for the broker. It's unlawful for this person too. By handing out flyers, they are soliciting. By making telephone solicitations, they are soliciting, which is only for licensees seeking buyers and sellers. Now, if you're thinking, well, wait a minute, Ben, I thought I could make cold calls. Yes, you can make cold calls seeking to see if someone is interested in buying or selling, but that appointment needs to be scheduled for the licensee. It needs to be scheduled for me. It needs to be scheduled for someone else. The way that this question is read is makes telephone solicitations seeking buyers and sellers. It's imposing that the Larry is seeking buyers and sellers. And because they're an unlicensed employee of the real estate broker, the broker is still responsible. So it's unlawful for Larry and the employing broker. When a broker hires a salesperson under a valid independent contractor agreement, which of the following is correct? Broker may set the salesperson's hours and assign floor time. Since the salesperson is a independent contractor, it's going to fall under they are an employee, but they're not the employee that requires a certain amount of hours. Brokers must pay state unemployment insurance premiums. Nope, because you're an independent contractor. Broker may be held liable for salesperson conduct. Yeah. Any unlicensed assistants must be employee. Nope, it's going to be C. The reason it's going to be C is because any unlicensed assistant of the salesperson must be employee of the broker. No, you don't have to. Like you guys aren't members of Nationwide Real Estate Executives. You guys can be my unlicensed assistant. Absolutely, you could be. B, brokers must pay state employment insurance premiums for the salesperson. That's if they were a W-2 employee. And A, may set salesperson's hours. No, because they're independent contractors. So it is C, broker may be held liable for salesperson's conduct in a real estate transaction, and that is the absolute truth. Let's go property management. I know some of you guys are property managers. So property manager is a licensed real estate person who is paid to oversee the property management operations of a rental or commercial property. Property managers must be familiar with the rent control law, the responsibilities of any property manager, setting rents, responsible for tenants, maintenance, knowledge of landlord-tenant law, taxes, budgeting. You property managers, this one's going to be an easy one for you, but this one here, that is what a property manager does. A resident manager is much different. Not much different, but resident manager is that person who resides on the property. They don't have to be licensed. The resident manager is the one who usually gets like a discounted rent because they live on the premises, and if the tenants have issues or maintenance or problems, they go to that resident manager. Now, buildings 16 units or more must have an on-site manager. Again, this is that person. It's usually the first, like you walk into the building, it's usually the first apartment. That person is the resident manager. Comments, complaints, they go to that resident manager. This person does not need a license. Now let's go managing leases. So when we talk about managing leases, we're just doing terminology. We're just learning about a little about terminology. A broker is a generic term for someone who's working with a landlord to find a tenant to sign a lease. The listing broker is the person who's under contract with the landlord to fill the vacancy, and then we got the tenant's broker, the one that's representing the tenant to find the property. We got 3 different types of leases. The first word of all these leases should be your kind of like signal. So a gross or fixed lease, if you guys are renting right now, you have a gross or fixed lease. This is a flat fee that includes most of all the landlord's expenses. Landlords bear the burden of inflation during the lease period. So this is a flat fee that just straight all the way across. It's this amount for this month for X amount of time. I paid $4,000 for the next 12 months. That is a gross fixed lease. A triple net lease, this is a net lease. This is where the tenant leasee pays part of the landlord's expenses. This is more common in commercial. So if you're in commercial, this one is second nature to you, but this is where the tenant would pay the maintenance. They'll pay the taxes. They'll pay the insurance. Whereas a gross fixed lease, all those expenses are in one, paid by the tenant. And then the last one is a percentage lease. This is where the tenant pays base rent plus a percentage of the gross receipts. This is more common for retail stores. We have a ground or land lease. This is where the tenant rents the land, usually unimproved vacant land. If the tenant improves the land, the improvements will now belong to the owner. So vacant land, if they add something to it, they add maybe it's livestock, and they add like the barbed wire, for the cattle, that stays. They improve the land, that stays with the owner. We have a graduated lease. This is lease amount increases or decreases depending on the current market or on a set schedule. This is common for office leases. First 1-2 years, it's $2,000 a month. Year 2, 3, 4, it's $25,000. Maybe it just gradually increases. And the last type of lease is what we call a sale leaseback. And this is common when a owner sells a property and negotiates and resides in the property after closing. Super common. I don't say it happens all the time, but it's common because usually a seller sells a property and they got to go somewhere else, but sometimes they need that money in order to move. So that negotiation can take place, and where the seller stays in the property maybe a week or 2 weeks after the sale is closed before moving out. All right, let's go to some quiz time here. A real estate broker acting as an agent for a landlord has the following instructions. Collect a larger deposit from single men than single women or couples. Okay. Advertise only by encouraging existing non-minority tenants to solicit prospective tenants from among their friends. Which of the instructions would be prohibited? Both. Both are a violation of the Fair Housing Act. You can't collect a larger deposit from single men rather than single women or couples. You can't vary the terms based upon someone's, marital status or sex. And number 2, advertise only by encouraging existing non-minority. Yeah, that's not right. Which of the following is not required to create a lease for less than 1 year? So this one here does come. This is just something that you're going to need to know. Which of the following is not required to create a lease for less than 1 year? It's going to be A, must be in writing. If that lease is less than 1 year, it does not have to be in writing. It's often called a handshake agreement. It is not a landlord's option to have 3-month deposit. It is not the rent and method of payment. It is not a termination date. It does not have to be in writing if it's less than 1 year. A few more things here. We're going to go specialty areas. We're going to talk construction and licensing, but we're going to talk business sales. As real estate agents, you do have what?
Only working home.
Oh shit! What time is he off today?
1:31.
Oh shit! Can you get him? Dang it. So as real estate agents, you can, with your real estate licenses, you may transact business sales. It is a segment of the business. I don't have much experience in it, but I used to have an agent. So let's jump into the specialty areas of a real estate. We're going to talk construction licensing. We're going to talk about different types of sales that real estate agents can be part of, and one of them can be business sales. Sales of businesses are not something that I'm too familiar with. Commercial real estate agents deal more with business sales, buying coffee shops, gas stations. I've been a part of a gas station sale that was fairly complicated. But real estate agents can be part of business sales. They can also be part of sales of franchises. We used to have an agent who worked for Dunkin' Donuts. She would be responsible for finding locations for Dunkin' Donuts back east. There is a process for that, but with your real estate license, you can facilitate the transaction for franchisees. When it comes to franchisees, permits, that's all over the site. That's all over the supervision of the Department of Business Oversight. And when we're talking franchisees, that real estate agent will help facilitate the act of and when we talk licensees, anyone under the act would be covered under the law And when we talk about franchisees, anybody that is doing this transaction does have to be a licensed real estate broker or be a broker who is licensed under the Department of Business Oversight. As we jump into mobile homes is another part of the business. Mobile homes are essentially the same thing as selling real property, except that we're dealing with the Department of Housing and Community Development. I think that's the most important thing here to know. When we're doing mobile home transactions, the prices are a lot less, but you will be dealing with the Department of Housing and Community Development. Now let's put our construction hats on. You know, if you are in construction, this part's going to be super easy for you. And when it comes to real estate licensees, we got to know parts about construction as well too. And I guarantee you there's going to be some construction questions on your final real estate exam. So when we talk construction and licensing, we have to know that in California, anyone who contracts to perform work on a project is valued at $500 or more for combined labor and material costs must hold a valid CSLB contractor state license board. Now, if the owner of the property, they are exempt if they are doing any of the following. They're performing the work prior to sale, homeowner resides in the residence for 12 months prior, and the homeowner is not taking advantage of this exemption. If that's the case, then they do not need the CSLB license. These are some construction terms that you're going to need to have an idea of what they are. The gross commercial acre, the orientation refers to the direction. Is it facing north, east, west, or south? HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Plot plan, this is a plan showing the placements of improvements. The R value has to do with the resistance of rating. If you walking through Home Depot and you're looking at the insulation, it all has an R value. EER, the higher the EER, the more efficient the appliance. Turnkey is a term they use over move-in ready, elevation plan, and backfill. Now this one right here, we have a figure. This is in our principles book, and these are some of the key areas that we want to know. So if we're going to look at flashing, the flashing is the sheet metal used to protect against seepage. Got to fix that text. Under at the roof line, this is a little vent cap, but that's a sheet metal to protect against seepage. We got the mud sill. The mud sill is down below in the foundation area. It's treated lumber and bolted to the foundation. We have our footing. We have our footing down here for the foundation. We got our studs running up and down, 0.17. These are the ones 16 inches apart. If you bang on your walls and you hit a more of a strong point, you probably hit a stud. You got your joists. Your joists are right up here. These are supporting floor and ceiling boards. And the header. And this is the one above the doorway, above the window. And then we got the highest point, which is the ridge board. This chart, you don't want to go into your final real estate exam without reviewing this chart, without having a general idea of how a house is built and what's in the walls and how the foundation looks. Backfill is one that always pops up. I'd be surprised if you don't get a question about backfill. Backfill is this. So this is the foundation, right? This is our foundation. The backfill is the material dug out. Backfill is the process in the excavated area around. It's this dirt right here is the backfill. It's what your builder took out and put back in. So this is the foundation. This is the side of the house. Here's your footing. It is this wood. Dirt right here. This is the backfill. We have a couple different shapes of roofs. We see the hip here in California. Flat roofs in the Spanish style. We don't see too much of these, but they are around. Different types of roofs. And then let's finish up on disclosures. Now, disclosures, we talk about material facts. Material fact is any part of the property that affects the value or desirability. If you got railroads in the back, if you got a freeway in the back, if you have a leaky roof, the biggest thing about material facts is if it can alter the decision-making ability of the other party, it does need to be disclosed. And material facts are things that sellers need to disclose, agents need to disclose. Now, if you can prove that the seller was aware of the defect and concealed it, you could be liable for fraudulent misrepresentation. Now, if you do go to court for not stating material facts or concealing any of these defects, you could be liable for any of these, which one is compensatory damages. The seller could be forced to pay compensatory damages for any out-of-pocket exhaust, any pocket costs associated with the concealed defect. Now, if you go to court for this, like, that's a big issue. That's why we have insurance, but these are no good. You do not want to be part of these. But the seller could be forced to pay through compensatory damages. You also have punitive damages. Punitive damages, if you can prove that the seller acted in malice in concealing the defect, you may be able to recover punitive damages, and these could be awarded by the court in addition with compensatory damages. If you were wronged, you could be liable for both damages. It's up to the court. And in very, very rare cases, we got rescission, where they reverse the sale completely, and that doesn't happen very often at all. A landmark case that is important, and this is another one that out of your 37, 38 questions that you're going to get on your final real estate exam, this is probably one of them that you are going to get. It's the Easton and Strasburger case, and what this case did was it greatly extended the liabilities of brokers in a real estate transaction. It required agents to visually notate any red flags that they see. Remember, we're licensed individuals. We know about construction. We know about selling franchises and mobile homes and practice and ethics. Like, we have a greater responsibility because of this case. And this is what happened on the Easton and Strasburger case. Strasburger hired Valley of California to sell their property. Easton bought the property for $170,000 in 1976. During the transaction, one of the agents observed the floor of the guest house. It was uneven, and that's typically an indication of soil problems. There was a net installed to repair the damage of a prior slide that occurred prior to the sale. The buyer bought the property. Easton bought the home, and a slide occurred, causing major damage. Now the home is worth only $20,000 after the damage. Prior in 1973, 1975, there was also a mudslide that caused the land to sink. The defendants, the sellers at Strasburger, never disclosed the facts to Easton. Now, because of this, the trial awarded $197,000 for concealment and intention for being negligent. The broker, even the buyer's broker, was involved in this too, is because the uneven floor should have been pointed out by the buyer and the listing agent that there was a sign of issues, and it should have been pointed out to the buyer. Now, can the agents say that they didn't know? Sure, they can absolutely say it, but they lost in this case because the soil and the sloping was a huge indication, and all this really did was required agents to do something called a Agent Visual Inspection Disclosure, which we also call as the AVID. This is a California law that requires agents representing buyers and sellers to conduct a reasonable, competent, and diligent visual inspection. So we visually fill out this form in our own handwriting. I prefer to take pictures. We have to point out stains, cracks, things that we visually see at the subject property. We put in the date, we put in the time, we put who was present, we put if it was cloudy, if it was sunny. We do fill out this form, and this is a required form as a result of the Easton and Strasburger case. Now, other disclosures that are part of a transaction is something called a real estate transfer disclosure statement. Super important form. Super important form for the buyer to read and the seller to fill out. Now, this form here is filled out by the seller in their own handwriting, and they are answering questions such as, do they live in the property? Is there anything wrong with the property? Is there any defects on the property? Has anything been added to the property that was not with a permit? Was there any nuisances, any pets, any odors, anything that could change the buyer's ability to buy this property? You got to disclose it, and this is the responsibility to the agents to review what the client had them fill out. If you do want to see a full example, check your handout. There's a link to view an example of the real estate transfer disclosure statement. Another disclosure statement that is part of a transaction is what we call natural hazards, and luckily for everybody here, California is the only state that requires this natural hazard disclosure, and this natural hazard disclosure is what it sounds like. It is advising the buyer of any natural hazards around a subject property. Now, natural hazards meaning special flood zones. Are they next to a dam? Are there in a very high fire hazard zone? Is there a state fire responsibility, earthquake zone, seismic zone? That's what this report goes over. This report explains if there's any natural hazards around a particular property. The Alquist-Prio Special Studies Zone Act. The important thing, this act prohibited development of structures for human occupancy on top of active earthquake faults. Now, active earthquake faults, if there is activity happening, it's going to prohibit any homes being built in that area, because why would you want a home built there if there's earthquakes actively in that area? So that's what this act is about. And then we have some last final environmental hazards. These are things that we don't want in our house, but we all know these terms such as asbestos. Asbestos is something that can be found in homes. I'm almost going to guarantee you have asbestos in your home right now. It's in your ducting, it's in your water heater, but it is only bad if it is disturbed. But if you do have issues or concerns, call the appropriate professional. But asbestos is commonly found in homes. Radon gas too. The silent killer, colorless, tasteless, commonly found in basements and commonly found in all homes. Just the level of radon needs to be under a certain minimum to be safe. We have groundwater contamination. Common source is underground storage. Pesticides used on farms and septic tanks. If you ever seen Aaron Brockovich, love Julia Roberts. Always reminds me of when I hear groundwater contamination, you just watch Aaron Brockovich or just watch a YouTube video about it. But that was contaminated water in houses. We also have toxic mold. Can be the cause of health effects. Mold's no good. A ton of different kinds of mold, but mold's a no-no. Lead-based paint. Homes built before 1978. Lead was used. Buyers have the right to inspect for lead-based paint. Anything built after 1978, this is not going to apply. Disclosure of death. Anything in the last 3 years, the seller must disclose if anybody has passed away in the home. Now, an occupant's death from AIDS or AIDS-related illness is a highly emotional and is exempt from the death disclosure law. Usually the common question when anyone hears about a death occurring on a property, the next natural question is, how did they die? If it was a murder, got to disclose that. If they died and passed away in their sleep, disclose that. But the buyer has a right to ask. The buyer has a right to say, hey, how did that person pass, without being insensitive. Now, state only requires 3 years, but we know if that fact could alter someone's decision-making ability, we got to disclose it. And a lot of times it's better safe to disclose than not disclose. Megan's Law is another item that consumers have the right to inspect. Is meganslaw.ca.gov, which is a registered sex offender list. Now this one here is part of the disclosure and part of real estate practice. And pests, wood-destroying pests specifically, termites. Termite inspection reports are not required for transactions except for VA loans, Veteran Affairs loans. FHA used to require it, does not require it anymore. This is part of the buyer's investigation, and they have the right to investigate a property on termites. Seller has no obligation to fix anything that we just discussed here, by the way. If the house is riddled with termites and the seller doesn't want to fix it and the buyer doesn't want to buy it, the deal will fall apart and that's it. Seller will be no obligation to fix any of that stuff. So which court case gave rise to the law requiring the seller and agent to make full disclosure of the condition of property? You know which one this is. It's Easton versus Strasburger. What actions are required of agents regarding material facts? What actions? They are deemed confidential between agent and client and should be protected. That is not correct. When they are material facts, you need to disclose. They should generally be disclosed to the public, although in some instances they may be considered minor and confidential and need not be disclosed. Although some instances. We're going to circle back to that. I don't like that statement part, but let's go back to that. They should be disclosed to serious buyers. How do you determine if someone's serious? That doesn't make any sense. And D, they must always be disclosed. I'm going to go with D, must always be disclosed. Yep, D, always be disclosed. Appreciate you hanging in there, everybody. Hope you found this helpful. If you guys have any questions, shoot me an email, text, call, email, voicemail, letter in the mail. I don't know. But you got my information. If you have any questions at all, please give me a shout. I appreciate you guys listening today and joining in. And again, I apologize for not being there on Saturday with you guys, but we'll be back at it this week. I appreciate you guys. Have a good one. Talk to you guys later.